Welcome back. I'm sure that you have missed me in the brief time that you've done a few other activities. We're going to transition gears from thinking about the student experience and really dive into learning and the teacher experience. During staff conference three, the day was really structured so that folks could go through, hey, this is what a teacher experiences as we teach. These are the spaces that they're learning. For this makeup, we are going to actually just at a pretty high level talk about the different spaces, but included in the activity will be some resources and links for you to dive in and look at yourself. The first main space that we have is the clinic space. So likely when you hear the word clinic, it brings up something for you. Maybe you think of a medical clinic, maybe you think of a training. For us this summer, and the name clinic was really intentional, a clinic is a space where you actually look at what's happening, determine the status, and as a result, the next steps. And so to me and to this summer, it really lives into the vision principles around practice, because in a clinic, it is grounded in application and iteration of a new skill. It really lives into our vision for depth over breadth. Clinic spaces have a very specific focus as opposed to let's learn everything. And it also just really lives into our deep belief in people, that if we continuously revisit skills and if we use the data and the structures already in place, that people will be able to grow. And that's both students and teachers. So there are three different clinic spaces. Data clinic, which focuses on using data from your classroom. Lesson clinic, which focuses on adjusting, internalizing, and getting stronger at writing lesson plans. And video clinic, then that allows folks to really think about what is happening in my classroom in terms of relationships and structures, and how can I get better at that. So in all of the clinic spaces, regardless of the content, the teacher is bringing in their current classroom experience, diagnosing an area for growth, potentially learning a new skill or an extension of a previous skill, and then applying that skill. So if you think about the timing, the first two sections of bringing in the current experience and diagnosing and learning the new skill, that accounts for probably 1/3 of those spaces. The bulk of the space is really around the application and the trying out of that new skill. So sometimes that means getting up and actually going through practice protocols in execution in some capacity. In some instances, that means let's actually look at the tracker and the data for our set of students and make sense of it, or practice adding data to the tracker. Or some other variation of application. But really the heart of this is the teacher, the core member, doing the work. These clinic spaces also really live into elements of our facilitation philosophy and the idea that adults need learning to be relevant and practical. If I'm talking about lesson planning data or teacher moves or teacher tone in a really theoretical way that's really removed from my experience during the summer and the students that I'm working with right now, I'm going to be disinterested. Our teachers, and this is like a wonderful, wonderful thing that we see in them, really care about their students during the summer. And so if they aren't seeing and making the connections to what they're doing right then and there, it's really challenging for them to see the value and to grow in that skill. A little bit more information on the three different spaces. In data clinics, which are run predominantly by the instructional leader, teachers are practicing using data. So that means they're practicing the skill of how do I literally grade and calibrate my diagnostics and summatives and learn from it. So as opposed to just having teachers give a test and then enter it into a tracker, really what does this form, this sliver of data, tell me about my students' academic experience or orientation to this content matter? In Data Clinic, we're also talking a lot about how do you share that data? Share that data with students, share that data with families and influencers, or with other necessary colleagues that need to be in the loop about what's happening with students. And so really thinking about Data Clinic as both this collection piece, how do I do that in a way that's like easy and sustainable? But then also once I have it, how do I use it to share updates with students? How do I use it to increase my instructional skill and differentiation? Lesson clinics happen twice a week and are run by the content facilitator. Lesson clinics really focus on bringing to life key points and assessments and skills that help get students to get engaged. And so that means that teachers are looking at their lesson plan and applying a new skill in order to grow on that student outcomes document. For example, early on in the lesson clinic, one of the things that we focus on is think, pair, share. Right? To a teacher that's been teaching for a while, you're like, I can do that in my sleep. I naturally know where to put that in. I naturally know like the prompting questions that push depth. But for a new teacher, just writing in, okay, think, pair, share on this doesn't actually help increase discourse or understanding on a subject matter. And so really thinking about the moves and the skills that make students feel engaged and master content more. Video Clinic, which happens once a week and is run by the mentor teacher, really is a chance to revisit and see how the application of key moves are playing out. So Video Clinic particularly focuses in on directions, narration, praise, and redirection. For teachers that have really gotten those skills down, there will be opportunity to think through de-escalation or procedures. But really it's a chance to have a teacher look at their own classroom and say, oh, when I did or didn't do this, this was the reaction on students. While we're teaching, we're thinking about lots of different things and lots of different inputs and all of the things, and it can feel very overwhelming. And so making sure that there's a space for teachers to step back and look at their classroom from a higher balcony perspective is really important. In addition to clinic spaces, there are also formalized learning spaces, which we're calling more traditional learning spaces, where the teachers are getting much more in-depth and application or orientation to a new skill. In older institute models, the majority of the learning happened in a traditional session space. But as you think about our summer, the bulk of the learning really happens either in clinic spaces or in coaching spaces. And you'll learn more about our approach to coaching and philosophy for coaching in the next part of this activity. I'm really excited about data clinics. I think it also helps us orient to different ways that we can make that learning relevant and practical for our teachers.